This is just Bob Bowman, and I'm coming at you with another video. This video, I want to do a response to Lysandra, where she had put up a video where there were clips of women talking about being the so-called ugly one in the group, the so-called ugly friend that never gets approached by men, and how that affected the way that they view things and how they view society. And it made me go back to one of my old videos where I talked about it's not where you're from and it's where you're at. And one thing that I said in that video was that I had empathy for people due to certain situations and circumstances that they went through. And I have to kind of do an update on what it is that I actually feel and how it is that I actually think and believe. And one thing that I noticed with a lot of the women were not unattractive. Um, to be honest with you, there were a few that I wouldn't date because I don't find them attractive. But it's like one thing that I understand is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And one thing that I can kind of see with some of the women is that the caliber of men that they found attractive didn't find them attractive. And if a man didn't meet that standard of what it is that they consider qualifying for them personally, they wouldn't give that guy the time of day. And it doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter how much money that guy makes. It doesn't matter what material possessions that guy has. It's just that he just doesn't qualify. And we as human beings, we have the right to have preferences. And it's okay if somebody doesn't like you in that way or doesn't want to be with you in that way. What isn't okay is if they lead you on to thinking that you have a chance just to get something out of you, either to brag to their friends how they, manipulating you and you taking them out on dates and things like that, and they think they have a chance when in actuality they don't. And I know how it is to be the guy that's in a group that that's rarely approached by the women, having to see his other guy friends have more success than him. And it's tough because you have those guys be like, well, I'm doing it, why ain't you doing it? You need to put yourself out there more. But then when I put myself out there more, there's been times where I've been labeled creepy and things of that nature, and I was just like, I don't want to go through that experience. Like, even if I'm being cordial, sometimes just being cordial with somebody, they will think that you're creepy if they don't find you attractive or interesting. So I've kind of dialed down on that. You know what I'm saying? I try to just chill with myself and be to myself. If somebody alone comes along that I find attractive, and she finds me attractive, and we figure out that we can mesh well together, then I'm willing to take that chance. But until that happens, I'm comfortable with how. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm just gonna keep working on myself to get to the best position that I can get to. So, with that being said, I understand how these women feel or how they think. And one thing that I have to say is that there are a lot of men that go through the same thing. Now, I take into account that there's more women than men in this world. So there are a lot more women that's going through this dilemma than there are men that's going through this dilemma. And one thing that I suggest to both men and women is to get outside of the neighborhood that you live in. Get outside of the city that you live in. Sometimes you have to go to another state. Sometimes you may even have to go outside of the country to find what it is that you desire. And for that person to have reciprocal feelings for you. Now, I understand that there's Some people that don't feel comfortable with doing that. I've had conversation with both men and women where I've suggested that to them, and they say, "Well, I don't want to have to go all the way to this place or that place to find somebody. I should be able to find it here." And in their minds, they thinking that if they do that, it's showing a level of desperation or a level of not being able to hang or cope with the dating environment that they're in. But to me, in the way that I look at it, it's a way of showing that you're courageous enough to try something new. You have determination not to let your circumstances and situations to hold you back. So it's all about your mental perspectives on how it is that you look at things. Now, you have women that have this idea where, like, oh, I don't look attractive enough for the guy that I want, so I'm just going to sit it out. They don't want to deal with any man, even if that man is somewhat attractive and somewhat handsome to them. But if he's not what it is, exactly what they're looking for, they just are like, no, absolutely not. And that's fine. But you have men that think the same way. And those men are shamed. Those men are disrespected. Those men are ostracized. Those men are nuclear rejected within the community. And nobody bats an eye on that. And knowing that and also experiencing that myself, I have to be honest. And what's honest, how it is that I look at it, is like I understand where those women are coming from, but at the same time, I don't care. I don't. And that may sound harsh. It may sound bitter. It may sound like I'm just a cruel and person that lacks feelings, but that's not the case. And the reason why I say I don't care what it is that they're going through is because I'm going through something similar to them. You know, I have my own issues that I have to deal with. And like I stated in another video, you can't just put one person that's desirable with a whole group of people with another person that's undesirable with a whole group of people and expect them to just deal and tolerate with each other. It's not going to work, especially if they don't find each other attractive. Like, I've had women who I wasn't interested in really pursue me hard, and the only reason is because they were looking for help. They were looking at me as the help, like a butler or a maid or something like that for them and their situation. I'm supposed to come in there, clean and fix it up. They would be like, well, I'll just settle with him and get married to him and have him do all this stuff, and if I'm able to tolerate him, I'll deal with him from a distance for the rest of my life. Or if I can't, I'll use him to the most and then just toss him to the side like everybody else have done. And it's like, is that really fair to the man? And there are men that do this to women as well. So I'm not just saying that this is only a thing that happens to men. It happens to women as well. So is that fair to those individuals? Now, I would rather be seen as a bad guy and not give a person that I'm not attracted to or I have no interest in a chance than to try to please everybody and to do what everybody else wants me to do, because it's not going to help out the situation anyway. Because eventually, if I do that, I'm going to have a level of resentment in my heart. I'm not going to treat that person the way that I'm supposed to treat them. And a relationship isn't going to work out. And I've done it before. That's the reason why I say that. There were times when I would be with a person and I didn't necessarily want to be with them. And they didn't necessarily want to be with me either. And all it did was cause a lot of conflicts and confusion. And there are times when that person would be messing with somebody else. There were times when I'd be messing with somebody else. And at the end of the day, it was just two people that were together because they were either desperate or they were looking for something that they couldn't get themselves in an honest way. and I say this with all honesty and with all transparency, it's not really good to do that to people. It's better to stay by yourself. And I understand that some people want to guilt you into being with a person and sticking with this person, and you really don't desire to be with that person. And I understand that life happens. You know, you have individuals that go through medical issues and health crisis. You have individuals that go through financial situations or hardships. And it's good to have individuals that you can lean on and support, or for support when you're going through those times. And I went through that recently, where I went through 3 car accidents in 1 year, and I had surgery, and it took a long time for me to recover from that. And I talked about that extensively before. But is it fair for me to just settle for somebody that I know I wouldn't desire to be with because I'm going through these hardships? Some people would say yes, because, oh, you know, you have to look at the inside of a person instead of outside. And, you know, I understand what they're saying. I understand their logic, but sometimes it doesn't work, and we have to be honest with it. Am I saying that people shouldn't, you know, consider being with somebody that may not check all the boxes? No, I'm not saying that. All human, most human beings are not going to check all the boxes for everybody. But if you know you have some non-negotiables, you have to be honest with yourself and say, this isn't negotiable. You know, and stick to it, and be willing to deal with the consequences that come with it, because you can't escape consequences in life. You can't escape risk in life. It happens, and it's going to happen, and that's why I am the way that I am, and that's the reason why I talk the way that I talk, and that's the reason why I'm at this point to where I say that I don't care if a woman is struggling. I don't care if she has a whole bunch of children and the man or the men that had those children with her aren't helping her out. And I'm willing to volunteer in the community, to do little things here and there. But as far as personally taking on that responsibility in my life to help somebody fix their situation and I'm getting nothing out of it, no, I'm not willing to do that. Does that make me a bad person? To some people, yes, it makes me a bad person. And I have to live with that. I have to live with that notion. I have to live with that understanding that I'm a bad person to some people because I refuse to allow myself to be taken advantage of in that way. And they say that a man is supposed to fill certain roles in order to be respected. If you don't want to respect me, fine. I'm doing my best to stay out of your way. But at the same time, I would like for you to be cordial to me. And if you don't think that you can be cordial to me, just, avoid even speaking to me as much as possible, and I will do the same thing with you. I know that there are sometimes and instances where it's going to happen regardless, but I'd rather not deal with people like that. And I'm just going to be honest and say what a lot of men want to say that some are too afraid to say. And what it is that we want to say is that we don't care anymore. I've been beaten out of caring at this point. So I really don't care. I don't. I know that may sound harsh, but I don't care about what's going on in your family. I don't care about if you're struggling with your children, if you're struggling with your bills, if you're struggling to move up in life, if you're struggling at your job, if you need to get on public assistance. I don't care anymore. And the reason why I don't care, because I know that there's a lack of caring or even people that want to understand my situation. And with that being said, I still have to do what I need to do to overcome my situation, regardless of whether or not people care. And so you're going to have to do the same thing. And with that being said, this is just Bob Bowman. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm out.